Hi friends, hi everybody. Today I continue read the book of Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451. Books bombarded his shoulders, his arms, his upturned face. A book alighted almost obediently, like a white pigeon in his hands, wings fluttering. In the dim, wavering light, a page hung open, and it was like a snowy feather, the words delicately painted thereon. In all the rush and fervor, Montag had only an instant to read a line, but it blazed in his mind for the next minute, as if stamped there with fear still. Time has fallen asleep in the afternoon sunshine. He dropped the book. Immediately another fell into his arms. Montag, up here! Montag's hand closed like a mouth, crushed the book with wild devotion, with an insanity of mindlessness to his chest. The men above were hurling shovelfuls of magazines into the dusty air. They fell like slaughtered birds, and the woman stood below like a small girl among the bodies. Montag had done nothing. His hand had done it all. His hand, with a brain of its own, with a conscience and curiosity in each trembling finger, had turned teeth. Now it plunged the book back under his arm, pressed it tight to a sweating armpit, rushed out empty with a magician flourish. "Look here, innocent, look!" He gazed shaken and at that white hand. He held it wide out as if he were far-sighted. He felt it close as if he were blind. "Montag," he jerked about. "Don't stand there, idiot!" The books lay like great mounds of fishes left to dry. The men danced and slipped and fell over them. Titles glittered their golden eyes, falling gun. Kerosene. They pumped the cold fluid from the numbered 451 tongues strapped to their shoulders. They coated each book. They pumped rooms full of it. They hurried downstairs. Montag staggered after them in the kerosene fumes. "Come on, woman!" The woman knelt among the books, touching the drenched leather and cardboard, reading the gilt titles with her fingers while her eyes accused Montag. "You can't ever have my books," she said. "You know the law," said Betty. "Where is your common sense? None of those books agree with each other. You have been locked up here for years with a regular don't. Tower a Bible. Snap out of it the people in those books never lived. Come on now." She shook her head. "The whole house is going up," said Betty. The men walked clumsily to the door. They glanced back at Montag, who stood near the woman. "You are not leaving her here?" he protested. "She won't come. Force her, then." Betty raised his hand, in which was concealed the ignitor. "We are due back at the house. Besides, these fanatics always try suicide. The pattern's familiar." Montag placed his hand on the woman's elbow. "You can come with me." "No," she said. "Thank you anyway." "I'm counting to 10, said Betty. 1, 2. "Please," said Montag. "Go on," said the woman. 3, 4. Montag pulled at the woman. The woman replied quietly, "I want to stay here. 5, 6. "You can't stop counting," she said. She opened the fingers of one hand slightly, and in the palm of the hand was a single slender object, an ordinary kitchen match. The sight of it rushed the man out and down away from the house, Captain Bitsy keeping his dignity backed slowly through the front door, uh, his pink face burned and shiny from a thousand fires and night excitements. God, thought Montag, how true. Always at night the alarm comes, never by day. It's because the fire is prettier by night, more spectacle, a better show. The pink face of Betty not now showed the faintest panic in the door. The woman's hand twitched on the single matchstick. The fumes of kerosene bloomed up about her. Montag felt the hidden book pound like a heart against his chest. Go on, said the woman, and Montag felt himself back away and away out the door after Betty down the steps across the lawn where the path of kerosene lay like the track of some evil snail. On the front porch, where she had come to wait them quietly with her eyes, her quietness a condemnation, the woman stood emotionless. Beatty flicked his fingers to spark the kerosene. He was too late. Montag gasped. The woman on the porch reached out with contempt for them all and struck the kitchen match against the railing. People ran out of houses all down the street. She said nothing on their way back to the firehouse. Nobody looked at anyone else. Montag sat in the front seat with Betty and Black. They did not even smoke their pipes. They sat there looking out of the front of the great salamander as they turned the corner and went silently on. Master Ridley, said Montag at last. What? Said Betty. She said, Master Ridley, she said some crazy thing, then became in the door, played the man, she said, Master Ridley, something, something, something. We shall this day light such a candle, by God's grace, in England, as I trust shall never be put out, said Betty. Stoneman glanced at our and the captain, as did Montag startled. Betty rubbed his chin. A man named Latimer said that to a man named Nicholas Ridley as they were being burned alive at Oxford for heresy on October 16, 1555. Montag and Stoneman went back to looking at the street as it moved under the engine wheels. I am full of bits and pieces, said Betty. Most fire captains have to be. Sometimes I surprise myself. Watch it, Stoneman. Stoneman braked the truck. Damon, said Betty, you have gone right by the corner where we turned for the firehouse. Who is it? Who would it be? Said Montag, leaning back against the closet door in the dark. His wife said at last, well, put on the light. I don't want the light. Come to bed. He heard her roll impatiently. The bed springs squealed. Are you drunk? She said. So it was the hand that started it all. He felt one hand and then the other work his coat free and let it slump to the floor. He held his pants out into an abyss and let them fall into darkness. His hands had been infected and soon it would be his arms. He could feel the poison working up his wrists and into his elbows and his shoulders, and then the jump from shoulder blade to shoulder blade like a spark leaping a gap. His hands were ravenous and his eyes were beginning to feel hunger as if they must look at something, anything, everything. His wife said, what are you doing? He balanced in space with the book in his sweating cold fingers. A minute later, she said, well, just don't stand there in the middle of the floor. He made a small sound. What? She asked. He made more soft sounds. He stumbled towards the bed and shoved the book clumsily under the cold pillow. He fell into bed and his wife cried out, startled. He lay far across the room from her, and the winter island separated by an empty sea. She talked to him for what seemed a long while, and she talked about this, and she talked about that it was only words, like the words he had heard once in a nursery at a friend's house, a 2-year-old child building word patterns, talking jargon, making pretty sounds in the air. But Montag said nothing, and after a long while, when he only made the small sounds, he felt her move in the room and come to his bed and stand over him and put her hand down to feel his cheek. He knew that when she pulled her hand away from his face, it was wet. Late in the night, he looked over at Mildred. She was awake. There was a tiny dance of melody in the air. Her seashell was stamped in her ear again, and she was listening to far people in far places, her eyes wide and staring at the phantoms of blackness above her in the ceiling. Wasn't there an old joke about the wife who talked so much and on the telephone that her desperate husband ran out to the nearest store and telephoned her to ask what was for dinner? Well, then, why didn't he buy himself an audio seashell broadcasting station and talk to his wife late at night, murmur, whisper, shout, scream, yell? But what would he whisper? What would he yell? What could he say? And suddenly she was so strange he couldn't. Excuse me. And suddenly she was so strange he couldn't believe he knew her at all. He was in someone else's house, like those or jokes people told of the gentlemen drunk come late at night, unlocking the wrong door, entering a wrong room, and betting with a stranger of getting up early and going to work, and neither of them the wiser. Milly, he whispered, what? I didn't mean to startle you. What I want to know is, well, when did we meet and where? When did we meet for what? She asked. I mean, originally, he knew she must be throwing in the dark. He clarified it. The first time we ever met, where was it and when? Why, it was at, she stopped. I don't know, she said. He was cold. Can't you remember? It's been so long. Only 10 years, that's all, only 10. Don't get excited, I'm trying to think. She laughed, an odd little laugh that went up and up. Funny, how funny not to remember where or when you met your husband or wife. He lay massaging his eyes, his brow, and the back of his neck slowly. He held both hands over his eyes and applied a steady pressure there as if to crush memory into place. It was suddenly more important than any other things in a lifetime that he knew where he had met Mildred. It doesn't matter. She was up in the bathroom now, and he heard the water running and the swallowing sound she made. No, I guess not, he said. He tried to count how many times she swallowed, and he thought of the visit from the two zinc oxide-faced men with the cigarettes in their straight-lined mouth, and the electronic-eyed snake winding down in the layer upon layer of night and stone and stagnant spring water, and he wanted to call out to her, how many have you taken tonight? The capsules. How many will you take later and not now? And so on every hour. or maybe not tonight, tomorrow night, and me not sleeping tonight or tomorrow night or any night for a long while. No, now that this has started. And he thought of her lying on the bed with the two technicians standing straight over her, not bent with concern, but only standing straight, arms folded. And he remembered thinking then that if she died, he was certain he wouldn't cry, for it would be the dying of an unknown, a street face, a newspaper image, and it was suddenly so very wrong that he had begun to cry now at death, but at the thought of not crying at death. A silly empty man near a silly empty woman, while the hungry snake made her still more empty. How do you get so empty? He wondered. Who takes it out of you? And that awful flower the other day, the dandelion, it had summed up everything, hadn't it? What a shame! You are not in love with anyone, and why not? Well, wasn't there a wall between him and Mildred when you came down to it? Literally, not just one wall, but so far three, and expensive too, and the uncles, the aunts, the cousins, the nieces, the nephews that lived in those walls, the gibbering pack of three apes that said nothing, 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 and said it loud, loud, loud. He had taken to calling them relative from the very first. How's Uncle Louis today? Who? And Aunt Maud? The most significant memory he had of Mildred really was of a little girl in a forest without trees. How old? Or rather, a little girl lost on a plateau where there used to be trees. You could feel memory of their shapes all about, sitting in the center of the living room. The living room, what a good job of labeling that was now. No matter when he came in, the walls were always talking to Mildred. Something must be done. Yes, something must be done. Well, let's not stand and talk. Let's do it. I am so mad I could spit. What was it all about? Mildred couldn't say who was mad at whom. Mildred didn't quite know. What were they going to do? Well, said Mildred, wait around and see. He had waited around to see. A great thunderstorm of sound gushed from the walls. Music bombarded him at such an immense volume that his bones were almost shaken from their tendons. He felt his jaw vibrate, his eyes wobble in his head. He was a victim of confusion. When it was all over, he felt like a man who had been thrown from a cliff, whirled in a centrifuge, and spat out over a waterfall that fell and fell into emptiness and never quite touched bottom, never quite, no, not quite touched bottom, and you fell so fast, you didn't touch the sides either, never quite touched anything. The thunder faded, the music died. There, said Mildred, and it was indeed remarkable. Something had happened. Even so, the people in the walls of the room had barely moved, and nothing had really been settled. You had the impression that someone had turned on a washing machine or sucked you up in a gigantic vacuum. You drowned in music and pure cacophony. He came out of the room sweating and on the point of collapse. Behind him, Mildred sat in her chair, and the voices went on again. Well, everything will be all right now, said and announced. Oh, don't be too sure. said the cousin. Now don't get angry. Who's angry? You are mad. Why should I be mad? Because that's all very well, cried Montag. But what are they mad about? Who are these people? Who's that man and who's that woman? And they husband and wife, and they divorced, engaged, what? Good God, nothing connected up. They said Mildred, well, they had this fight, you see. They certainly fight a lot. You should listen. I think they're married. Yes, they are married. Why? And if it was not the three walls soon to be four walls and the dream complete, then it was the open car and Mildred driving 100 miles an hour across town, he shooting at her and she shooting back, and both trying to hear what was said, but hearing only the scream of the car. At least keep it down to the minimum, he yelled. What? She cried. Keep it down to 55, the minimum. He shot at the what? She shrieked. Speed, he shot at, and she pushed it up to on 105 miles an hour and turned the breath from his mouth. When they stepped out of the car, she had the seashells stuffed in her ears, silence, only the wind blowing softly. Mildred, he stirred in bed. He reached over and pulled one of the tiny musical insects out of her ear. Mildred. Yes, her voice was faint. He felt he was one of the creatures electronically inserted between the slots of the phonocolor walls, speaking, but the speech not piercing the crystal barrier. He could only fathom, hoping that she would turn his way and see him. And they couldn't touch through the glass. Mildred, do you know that girl I was telling you about? What girl? She was almost asleep. The girl next door. What girl next door? You know, the high school girl, Clarice, her name is. Oh yes, she said, said his wife. I haven't seen her for a few days, 4 days to be exact. Have you seen her? No. I meant to talk to you about her strange. Oh, I know, the one you mean. I thought you would. Her, said Mildred in the dark room. What about her? Asked Montag. I mean to tell you, forgot. Tell me now. What is it? I think she's gone. Gone? Whole family moved out somewhere, but she's gone for good. I think she's dead. We couldn't be talking about the same girl. No, the same girl, McClellan ran over by a car 4 days ago. I'm not sure, but I think she's dead. The family moved out anyway. I don't know, but I think she's dead. You are not sure of it? No, not sure. Pretty sure. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Forgot. 4 days ago. I forgot all about it. 4 days ago, he said, quietly lying there. They lay there in the dark room, not moving either of them. Good night, she said. He heard a faint rustle. Her hands moved. The electric thimble moved like a praying mantis on the pillow touched by her hand. Now it was in her ear again, humming. He listened, and his wife was singing under her breath. Outside the house a shadow moved, an autumn wind rose up and faded away, but there was something else in the silence that he heard. It was like a breath exhaled upon the window. It was like a faint drift of greenish luminescent smoke, the motion of a single huge October leaf blowing across the lawn and away. The hound, he thought, it's out there tonight. It's out there now. If I opened the window, He didn't open the window. He had chills and fever in the morning. You can't be sick, said Mildred. He closed his eyes over the hotness. Yes, but you were all right last night. No, I wasn't all right. He heard the relative shooting in the parlor. Mildred stood over his bed curiously. He felt her there. He saw her without opening his eyes. Her hair burned by chemicals to a brittle straw. Her eyes with a kind of cataract unseen but suspect far behind the pupils. The reddened pudding lips, the body as thin as a praying mantis from dieting, and her flesh like white bacon. He could remember her no other way. Will you bring me aspirin and water? You have got to get up, she said. It's noon. You have slept 5 hours later than usual. Will you turn the parlor off? He asked. That's my family. Will you turn it off for a sick man? I will turn it down. She went out of the room and did nothing to the parlor and came back. Is that better? Thanks. That's my favorite program, she said. What about the aspirin? You have never been sick before. She went away again. Well, I am sick now. I am not going to work tonight. Call Bitsy for me. You acted funny last night, she returned, humming. Where is the aspirin? He glanced at the water glass she handed him. Oh, she walked to the bathroom again. Did something happen? A fire is all. I had a nice evening, she said. In the bathroom. What doing? The parlor. What was on? Programs. What programs? Some of the best ever. Who? Oh, you know, the bunch. Yes, the bunch. He pressed at the pain in his eyes, and suddenly the odor of kerosene made him vomit. Mildred came in humming. She was surprised. Why you do that? He looked with dismay at the floor. We burned an old woman with her books. It's a good thing the rag's washable. She fetched a mop and walked on it. I went to Helen's last night. Couldn't you get the shows in your own parlor? Sure, but it's nice visiting. She went out into the parlor. He heard her singing. Mildred, he called. She returned singing, snapping her fingers softly. Aren't you going to ask me about last night? He said. What about it? We burned 1,000 books. We burned a woman. Well, the parlor was exploding with sound. We burned copies of Dante and Swift and Marcus Aurelius. Wasn't he an European? Something like that. Wasn't he radical? I never read him. He was a radical. Mildred fiddled with the telephone. You don't expect me to call Captain Beatty, do you? You must. Don't shoot. I wasn't shooting. He was up in bed, suddenly enraged and flushed, shaking. The parlor roared in the hot air. I can't call him. I can't tell him I'm sick. Why? Because you're afraid, he thought. A child feigning illness, afraid to call because after a moment's discussion the conversation would run. So, yes, Captain, I feel better already. I will be in at 10 o'clock tonight. You are not sick, said Mildred. Montag fell back in bed. He reached under his pillow. The hidden book was still there. Mildred, how would it be if, well, maybe I quit my job a while You want to give up everything after all these years of working because one night some woman and her books. You should have seen her, Millie. She's nothing to me. She shouldn't have had books. It was her responsibility. She should have thought of that. I had her. She's got you going, and next thing you know, we will be out. No house, no job, nothing. You weren't there. You didn't see, he said. There must be something in books, things we can't imagine, to make a woman stay in a burning house. There must be something there. You don't stay for nothing. She was simple-minded. She was rational as you and I, more so perhaps, and we burned her. That's the water under the bridge. No, not water, fire. You ever seen a burned house? It smolders for days. Well, these fires last me rest of my life. God, I have been trying to put it out in my mind all night. I'm crazy with trying. You should have thought of that before becoming a fireman. So, she said, was I given a choice? My grandfather and father were firemen. In my sleep I ran after them. The parlor was playing a dance tune. This is the day you go on the earliest shift, said Mildred. You should have gone 2 hours ago. I just noticed it. It's not just the woman that died, said Montag. Last night I thought about all the kerosene I have used in the past 10 years. And I thought about books, and for the first time I realized that a man was behind each and one of the books. A man had to think them up. A man had to take a long time to put them down on paper, and I would never even that thought before. He got out the bed of bed. It took some man a lifetime maybe to put some of his thoughts down, looking around at the world and life, and then I came along in 2 minutes and boom, it's all over. So I think that today I ended my reading, and will you see tomorrow? Thanks for watching, and goodbye. See you later.